everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I'm doing a review for The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. So The Bone Shard Daughter is the first book in the Drowning Empire series, and it's set in this world where there are multiple islands who are ruled by the Emperor. And this Emperor uses bone shard magic, which is this kind of magic in which he cobbles together constructs made from the body parts of various animals. There go my dogs barking. And he cobbles together these constructs from various animal body parts and then animates them using bone shard magic. And this magic comes from shards of bone which drain the life of the person that this bone shard comes from. So in this bone shard empire, when you reach a certain age, everyone has to go through this ritual in which they have a small piece of bone removed from the back of their skull, and then that is given to the Empire to fuel these constructs. And if your bone shard is used in a construct, it will drain the life from you. And depending on how complex the construct is and how much it has to do, how quickly it uses up that magic, that's how quickly it shortens your life. So in this book, we're following four main points of view. Our main character is Lynn, who is the daughter of the Emperor and is meant to be his heir, but a few years ago, I think it's 5 years ago, she got sick with a mysterious illness, which caused her to lose her memory. And because of this, the Emperor is will not name her his heir until she regains her memories. And so her plotline is really about trying to regain her memories and maybe learn bone shard magic behind her father's back. And then along the way, she discovers some greater secrets. Another character point of view that we're following is Jovis, who is an outlaw who is searching for his wife because his wife was taken, I think about 7 years ago, and he has been sailing from island to island trying to track her down and track down this mysterious ship that took her. Along the way, though, he kind of accidentally becomes this accidental hero along the way because he unintentionally starts rescuing children from the ritual which removes their bone shard, which protects them from having their life drained through having their bone shard used in a construct. And then because of this, he also kind of gets connected to a rebellion that is going on, but he doesn't really care about any of this because he's just trying to track down his wife. He also has an animal companion who is excellent. Then another point of view that we're following is Falu, who is who's the daughter of a governor, I believe. And she has a romance with this girl who is also connected to the rebellion, and through that relationship Falu gets roped into this rebellion as well. And then there's a fourth point of view that we get pretty irregularly, who is Sand, who for most of the book you just I don't really understand why this point of view is here or how it's connected in any way, because she's just sort of on an island picking mangoes and doesn't really know what's going on. All right, so let's get into the review. Oh my god. First of all, I want to talk about the world, just that I think this is a really interesting world. I want to learn more about it in future books. I'd like to know more about the different cultures of the different islands and just, what the different places are like in this world. I think the magic is also really cool. It's a really interesting concept. It can get a little gruesome at times, but it doesn't go over the top. I think that it probably could have gone a little farther with its gruesomeness because it is this kind of Frankensteining together body parts of different creatures, and then the way that they insert and remove the bone shards is they're able to magically stick their hand into the bodies of the constructs and just rip out these bone shards. I think my main thought or critique of this book as a whole is that it just needed things to be a little more fleshed out. I think overall the book has a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of potential, a lot of like cool things, but I wanted a little bit more depth. So in terms of the world, there were two areas that I really wanted more. One was the history of the world, especially because in this country's history, or this empire's history, there were these people who were called, I think, the Alanga, who did something. They were horrible in some way. So the emperor had to drive them out of this empire, and he did that using the bone shard magic. And that is kind of what justifies to everybody why the bone shard magic should continue being used and why they should continue to sacrifice their bone shards and their lives to the emperor and the empire. However, I didn't feel like there was a lot of information. To me, it was not a satisfactory amount of information about like the Alanga people. Like, who were they? Where did they come from? What did they even do? Like, why were they so horrible? Why are people so fearful of them that they're willing to make this sacrifice? How exactly were they driven out? Like, there are just a lot of details about that history that I feel like I needed in order to understand the motivations of these this empire, and why people feel like, you know, keeping the Alanga people away justifies this sacrifice. The other piece that I think needed a little more fleshing out was the magic itself. As I said, it's a very interesting type of magic and I really liked it, but I wanted to know more about like how it works exactly, and also like why is it that the emperor is the only person who knows how to use this magic? Is there a reason that like only some people can use it, or is it like he discovered it somehow? And there are certain things about, like, there are certain people that I'm like, why is this person able to use it but not this person? There's just certain things about the magic, how it works, why certain people can use it, that I needed more information about. Then for the characters, I definitely had a favorite point of view, favorite character to be following, which was Lynn, who is, I think, arguably the main character. I think in general she just has the best plot line, especially because she is sort of the main character. But there were specific things about her storyline that I know for me were elements that especially made her character or her point of view plot work for me. One is that her plot has a limited location. It mostly takes place in the palace and then a little bit in the city, but she's not like moving around too much. Because of that, there are also recurring characters. There aren't a lot. She doesn't know a lot of people, but there are some recurring characters like the emperor. There's also, she has kind of like a foster brother that the emperor took in and is also teaching bone shard magic to. And then there's somebody that she knows in the city as well. And so because there are these recurring characters, there's a little bit more of an ability to include more of those character dynamics into the story, which I always like. Her storyline also has this plot line of like learning magic. There's a mystery element. At one point she has a bit of an identity crisis. And her storyline, the stakes, I think, are very personal, but they have the greatest implications for the story and the world. So those are all things that I think made her storyline work especially well for me. Then Jovis was probably my second favorite point of view to follow, but his character, his plot had some tropes that don't always work for me. One is the like searching for the missing wife trope. It's just not one that really interests me that often. He also travels a lot because he's sailing from island to island, and I don't really love travel in books. That also means that there are fewer recurring characters, so there's less of that like you know, that opportunity for character dynamics to be inserted into the story. Some of the things that I did like about his story though were, one, his plot really feels like the basis for a folktale. Like, I could imagine how his story would turn into like a folktale of this like hero of the people who saves children from having their bone shards removed. And there are just like a lot of elements that felt like a folktale, but this is like the origin story where like he never really meant to get involved in this and like all of that. So I liked that element of his story. Also, I liked that he had an animal companion, Mephi. His animal companion is amazing, and I loved Mephi, and I just wanted more Mephi all the time. Then, yeah, my least favorite point of view to follow was probably Falu's character. I just didn't find her character very compelling, and I found her romantic interest very annoying. But one thing that I did like about her character's plot, or like her character's arc, is that there is a portion of her story that is really about her confronting her own privilege, which I liked as an element that was woven into her character's arc. And then the point of view of Sand, I just like didn't really have opinions about, because most of the time I was just like, why? I don't understand why this is here. Like by the end, I got why, but for a lot of the book, I just was like, okay, moving on. So overall, I did like these characters, definitely some more than others, but I had a similar feeling about the characters in that they felt a little surface level, maybe a little underdeveloped. I think that not enough time was really spent with each individual character. There was a lot that needed to happen in this book, and so it felt like we kind of cycled through these character point of views pretty quickly and never really spent enough time to like really dig into one individual character, which I really would have liked. I actually feel like there are two things. One, I think I would have liked the book better if it was like primarily Lynn and we got to really dig into her storyline and then just got snippets of the other characters. But I also feel like when I'm comparing these points of view and plots that I was following, I definitely had a favorite, but if each one of these plot lines had been their own individual book, I feel like I could have enjoyed any one of these. It was more because I was comparing them because they were all in the same book, and because they each felt a little underdeveloped, that I definitely like formed favorites. But yeah, I still feel like there was a lot of potential, and I really enjoyed these characters and I really liked this world. I just think a lot more needs to be fleshed out in the world, the magic, and the characters. And I'm hoping that that will happen in the second book, because I definitely am going to read the second book. I really, I enjoyed this one enough. I'm very intrigued by a lot of elements of the story and this world. So I'm going to read that second one, and I'm hoping that we get more about the world, its history, this magic. We get more fleshing out in the characters. I think some of that might happen naturally just because one of the issues like for this first book was that each of these character plot lines was very separate from one another, so we had to like cycle through 4 different plot lines pretty quickly. However, from the ending of the first book, it seems like some of these characters and plots are going to start to converge, which will, I think, give us more time. It will give us fewer plots that we have to cycle through, even if we're seeing the same story from different points of view. And I'm hoping that'll help to kind of flesh out the characters more and make it feel like you're less like you're being jerked around as you're reading. Also, the ending of this first book just left me like with more questions, and I'm very intrigued to see what happens in the second book, and I feel like we're about to find out a bunch of real messed up stuff that some people have done, so I'm very intrigued by that. Anyway, overall, I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's a really good debut, and I'm excited to see what happens in the rest of the series. I'd love to know if you have read this book and what you thought of it, but thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!